Hello, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today on tech tips to help people with Parkinson's. Thank you for your patience just while we got started. My name's Mark Gaddis, and I'm the Digital Marketing Manager here at AbilityNet. Our webinar today is about tech tips to help people with Parkinson's. We're going to start with some introductory stats about Parkinson's. We're also then going to move on to some tech tips, so free quick fixes that you can make to your technology if you or someone you know has Parkinson's, to make it easier to use and to allow you to achieve your goals online. We're then going to have a case study with one of our volunteers who's helped a lady with Parkinson's in her home to achieve her goals using technology. And at the end of this webinar, there'll be a Q&A session where you can ask any questions you've had and we'll respond to those. So you've all joined this webinar. You'll all be on mute because it's a webinar, but if you have any questions or you're having any technical difficulties, please do go to the chat feature. That's down the bottom on your panel. You can ask questions there that we'll then answer at the end of this webinar. There is also the Q&A option, so you can ask questions there as well. Can we just move to the next slide, Alex?
Of course.
So the first thing we're going to do on this webinar, just to start things off, is we are going to start with a poll, just to make sure the technology is working, make sure everyone's engaged. So what I'm going to do, Alex, can you launch the first poll? Down the bottom of the menu, there'll be a poll function.
Yeah. Mark, I don't. So down the bottom, there's nothing at the top. Okay, I cannot see anything on my screen about launching a poll.
Okay, Alex, can you just on your screen, can you see it says Mark Gaddis as under the participants? Do you have that function?
Yeah, I do.
Can you right-click that and make me the host?
Yeah, sure. Just bear with me. In fact, I got it. No, right.
Great, thanks, Alex. So yeah, we just want to start this webinar off just by asking, do you or does someone you know actually have Parkinson's? And just to get a sense of who we've got on this call, and just to get a stat about how many people this does impact on the webinar itself. So you should see that. The options are yes, no, and I'm not sure. If you can then respond. And then Alex, you should be seeing something on your screen that tells you how many people are voting.
I certainly am.
And what you can then do, Alex, is you can close the vote and then you can share the results on the screen. Okay. So once you've got enough people have responded, if you can do that for us.
So I'm going to go to end polling, and then I'm going to go to share results.
Great. So we had a few people respond here. You can see 8 people have responded yes. They have or know someone with Parkinson's, which is about 47% of the people on this webinar. Interestingly, about 24% have said no, and 29% have said I'm not sure. So Alex, if you can close that poll now.
Yeah, I will certainly do that. And then...
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hand you over to my colleague, Alex Barker, who's the Advice and Information Officer here at AbilityNet. And we just obviously seen about how many people have or know someone with Parkinson's on this webinar. But Alex is going to start off just by sharing some top line stats about Parkinson's.
Thank you so much, Mark. So yeah, I just wanted to show you some stats because I'm quite interested, and I write lots of webinars and lots of blogs, and one of the first things that I want to know is how many people in the UK have condition X, Y, or Z. So the statistics about Parkinson's is quite interesting. Parkinson's UK, who are the national organisation that support people, estimate that there are around 145,000 people with diagnosis of Parkinson's in the UK. Now that's the population of Cambridge, so we're talking about a fairly small city, but a city nevertheless. And as you can see that in England, it's got the most with 121,000. Scotland has got 12,000, and Wales has got 7,000, and Northern Ireland has got just over 3,500. And because we're all getting older with population growth and aging, this is likely to increase by a fifth to around 168,000 people in the UK were by 2025. So 1 in 37 people alive today will be diagnosed with Parkinson's in their lifetime. My father was, or is one of them. He was diagnosed about 10 years ago. And he has his difficulties, but at the end of the day, he's still my dad. So we're gonna move on now. Now, if you've never gone to our AbilityNet website, I think it's worthwhile pointing out some of the really useful resources that we've got on it. So we have fact sheets, we've got webinars, we've got My Computer My Way, which we'll come back to in a little bit more detail later. We've got some useful links, and we also have got some digital accessibility resources and some information on workplace adjustments. This could be really useful if you're of working age and have Parkinson's or any other condition. Just having a look at My Computer My Way. So My Computer My Way talks about how to customize your computer for your own particular requirements. And when we say computer, we also mean your smartphone and your iPad. So we always say a computer comes out of the factory built for standard people. Of course, there's no such thing as a standard person. And a lot of the time, I would point people towards this, and it's all about help making your device easier to use. If you've not seen it before, go and take a look at it. It's very interesting. Now, and what we're going to do, we're going to talk about filter keys. Now, technology, people think technology costs quite a lot to actually implement. Filter keys can help people with Parkinson's, because one of the difficulties that people with Parkinson's have is they shake involuntarily. So they're trying to hit the keyboard and they're just tap, 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 and they're getting far too many characters on the keyboard. So what we wanted to show you was how easy it is to change it. So you can see here, I've got lots of Fs, and I don't want lots of Fs. And really and truthfully, what I want to be able to do is hold my hand on the keyboard for absolutely ages and only get one character. So how do we do that? We have to go into the control panel, and there's different ways of getting to it, but I think I just typed in keyboard settings, or you can even type in filter keys. And basically what it does, so the help system on Windows 10 is very good actually. So it says filter out repeated unintentional keystrokes. So just click on that. So the under filter keys, you can turn it on or off. Now you can toggle filter keys on, but I decided that I was going to set it up as if I had Parkinson's, or for my dad, and he'd want it on all the time. So basically, you just toggle it on, and then when you go back to your Word document, you should only be able to get one character at a time. Now, this sometimes is quite a slow and laborious way of doing things. But then you've got to think, as someone who might have Parkinson's, it's also a very slow and laborious thing to have to go back and hit the delete key several times to get rid of characters that you don't want. So what we would say is, and filter keys is one of the go-to options that we've got on the actual keyboard. So when you put filter keys on, you just hit the key for as long as you want, and you only get one character. So basically, that is Quick Fix 1. You can find it on my computer, my way, as well. What we're going to do is going to have a look at Quick Fix 2. Now, lots of people have difficulties with the mouse, and one of the major issues is that a mouse is quite hard to control, and it tends to scuttle off into the corners of the screen, and we want to stop that. So you can go into Windows settings once again, and it's actually quite hard to find. If you just put mouse in, you go into all different sections that you might not want to. So what you have to do is you have to say pointer speed. So you just click on pointer speed. And you can see that what you've got to do is you've got to take the mouse and down. So you can see there, it's taking me ages just to move a little tiny way on the screen. Now, of course, there are lots of alternatives to the standard mouse and the standard rollerball, but this is a really, really nice way of being able to make changes. So, basically what you want to do is actually you can change it to be slow, or you can change it to be fast. And what I would always say is that have a little experiment with it and see what you think is going to be really useful. Don't let anyone tell you what speed you ought to be going at. You've got your own speed. So moving on to Quick Fix 3. Lots of people now, they don't have Windows they don't have Windows computers. They've got iPads, they've got iPhones, and I've got a Samsung Galaxy phone, which I've had for a while, and I was really interested to see whether I could change the sensitivity on the tablet screen. So on the left-hand side, you've got a screenshot from an iPhone, I believe, that talks about accessibility, and it talks about touch accentuations. And basically, it means that you can increase the time where you have to hold your finger on the display to get anything done. And you can fiddle around with it to make it less or more. On the right hand side, you've got a screenshot of my Samsung Galaxy A6, and this is under the Android operating system, of course, and it basically means that I can increase the touch and hold delay. Now, we would say for anyone who's got Parkinson's, maybe a smartphone or an iPad might not be the most effective device to use, or you might want to certainly use it in a different way. But I think it's a nod towards the customization of your touch screen, and that's something that's only come out in the past couple of years. So that is really, really useful. Now
That's
we're going
great.
to go. Oh,
Yeah. Thanks, Alex. For that. Yeah, that's really, really interesting. I think it's really great, as you said, that all those features are free kind of inbuilt features in technology, because we haven't mentioned earlier, but AbilityNet as a charity, we offer a lot of free resources to people, older people and disabled people. So it's good that we're reiterating that those are free features. We did have a question came in earlier on in Quick
sure.
Fix 1. They were just
Yeah.
saying, are there similar features on tablets and iPads for filter keys? So just to reiterate Alex's final point on the third quick fix, yes, there are. Those are the touch accommodations that he's just been through, which are on Apple devices, and on Android it's called touch and hold delay. So that's really, really good. So really appreciate that, Alex.
I was going to say, interestingly, I've got a US. I've actually got a keyboard that I can plug into my iPad, but there doesn't seem to be any way at the moment of being able to change the filter speed of the keyboard. But what I would say is that if you're going to use an iPad, you're predominantly going to use it with your finger in your hand, I guess. And so there are ways to get around the difficulties with shaky hands and arms.
That's great. Thanks, Alex. So we've had a few other questions come through. As I said, I will leave them to the end. But if you have your own question, please do make sure you pop it in the chat, or there is the Q&A. So that's in the panel down the bottom of the screen if you're joining from a desktop device. We do have a second poll now, and I'm going to ask you, Alex, if you can run the poll as you did before. Just to say, somebody has commented to say that polls don't appear to work on if you're accessing through a browser. So I assume that means if you're on a desktop device. So apologies if you can't interact directly with this poll. But again, if you want to respond in the chat, I'll make sure that I kind of communicate what people are answering. So if you can go ahead, Alex, sharing the poll.
And just okay, launching the poll now.
So yeah, just we wanted to follow up on this with, we've shown you 3 quick fixes, and we just wanted to get a bit of insight to see, are any of you currently using any of these accessibility features we've shared on the webinar so far? So the answers are yes, frequently, yes, occasionally, no, or I'm not sure. So we're just asking this question to get a sense of, are we telling you something that you already know? Perhaps you have your own accessibility feature that you use as a person with Parkinson's that you actually want to share. If that's the case, then please do include it in the chat, and we're sure we share it with all attendees.
And I would be really interested to know if you could type into the chat box. It's okay, you can stay anonymous, but I'd be really interested to know which inbuilt function you're using, and maybe if you're using something other than a PC. I know there's lots of Mac users out there who might be using something called slow keys, but I'd be really interested to see what people are using. Thank you.
Cool. And I'll let you end that poll once
Yep.
you think you've had a few people responding, and we can just share
Yep.
the results.
Okay.
Great. So one person, I hope that's not you, Alex, has said that they're using the accessibility features frequently. 14% of people use them occasionally, but 81% of people have said no. So I hope that's particularly kind of reassuring for myself and Alex, that hopefully the information we've just shared is of relevance to you, because these free quick fixes that we've shared are things that you can go away and immediately start using. They have their equivalents in Windows, but also, as Alex was saying, on Mac and other devices. So that's great. So if you want to close that, Alex.
Sure.
And we mentioned about the fact that as a charity, we offer a lot of free expert resources for older people and disabled people. So I think what we're going to move on to next is a case study with one of our volunteers, which Alex can introduce.
So we have volunteers all over the UK. And David Brew is one of our volunteers in Northern Ireland, and he helped a client out called Dorothy. This is quite interesting because there's been a case study that's actually been written for one of the Parkinson's magazines, and so this is his view.
Alex, is the audio playing for you? Because it's not playing for the attendees. So can you just try that again?
Sure, I can.
If you hover over the icon of the... Okay, it doesn't appear that audio is working, Alex. I don't suppose you'd be able to summarize what David said at all?
Yeah, of course. That is actually so annoying because what David Brew was talking about was that when Dorothy called, she was very upset because she wanted to use her computer but she didn't know how, and she thought that her Parkinson's had got to the stage where she wasn't able to actually use her computer. And I think one of the things that David had to go and do was to reassure her that there was technology out there that could enable Dorothy to use her computer. And one of the things that we looked at was voice recognition. Now, David looked at a package called Dragon, naturally speaking. It's actually called Nuance, naturally speaking, but a lot of people still call it Dragon. And it took Dorothy a while, but she managed to enroll on voice recognition fairly successfully. Now, if you've got a client with Parkinson's, trying to get them enrolled on voice recognition can often be quite difficult for the simple reason that their voice might change from the morning to the afternoon. But what David successfully did was to record 2 voice files for Dorothy, one that she could access in the morning when she was feeling really good and awake, one that she could use in the afternoon where maybe things weren't quite as good. Maybe she was slurring her words and finding it a little bit difficult to speak. And from that, Dorothy has thrived, and I think it's given her certainly a new lease of life in using technology. Now, what we would always want to make clear is that Dorothy is just one of our clients that we've helped. So, what Dorothy's done may not be suitable or appropriate for other clients to do, but our volunteers would often go out of their way to make sure that people whose voice changed throughout the day could have access to different voice files, because just because your voice changes throughout the day doesn't mean that you want to stop using your computer. And at the end, David makes a comment about him being very, very happy because he could see the change in Dorothy's demeanour and see was, if you can access a computer, you can start to engage with all sorts of things that maybe you've had difficulty with engaging before. So, like Facebook or looking at the news or planning your holiday. There's all sorts of things that technology can help you to do.
Yeah, and I remember listening to the recording myself. We will share the slide deck around from this webinar. So the good thing is that everyone will be able to listen to the recording when we share that slide deck around. But I would just add to what Alex has already been saying. To say, I think towards the end, the great thing about this is our volunteer David. It's part of our volunteering services. We offer free support at home to people with disabilities and older people. And David went to visit this lady with Parkinson's regularly. It wasn't just one visit. And the comment that he also makes at the end is that he kind of really encouraged her and supported her through a journey. This wasn't just one visit to her and the problem was fixed instantly. It was through repeat visits they realized her voice was changing throughout the day. So they did go on a bit of a journey together, and I think it's a really nice testimony for our volunteers and the great work they do. And just another example of the free support that you can get from AbilityNet if you or someone you know has Parkinson's.
I'm also going to add, it's wonderful to work with so many talented volunteers. It's quite easy for us to sit in an office and just pass the requests on to the volunteers, but the volunteers are the boots on the ground, and they will go out of their way often to try and help someone in their local community do what they need to do, because being able to use technology is all empowering, and it ties into what we do. We're AbilityNet. We adapt technology and we change lives. So I know there are a few questions that people have put in.
Yeah.
So if Mark would like to give me some, I'll do my best to answer.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of questions that have come
Cool.
in. We do have still a bit of time on the webinar, so if anyone does want to ask a question, please do look for the Q&A or the chat function down the bottom of the panel, and we'll make sure that we answer as many questions as possible. One of the questions that has come through, and you've kind of already answered it, Alex, but I'm just wondering there might be something more you want to add. But somebody has asked already, how effective might voice recognition be for someone with Parkinson's? I know you've already spoken about it. We talked about it. It was in David's story. But is there anything more you would want to add to your answer?
Sure. I think it varies from person to person. So, in fact, let's take my dad for an example. So my dad sometimes stutters when he tries to speak, or he finds it really difficult to get words out on occasions. Now, voice recognition would have difficulties with understanding that, but for the most part, it's really easy to communicate with my dad. So his speech is really good. But if you've got difficulties trying to instigate words, you sometimes stutter, and voice recognition will try to recognize what it thinks you're trying to do. And actually, by doing that, you could end up getting mistakes or getting unwanted words. Now, what I would say is one of the difficulties that people with Parkinson's have sometimes is that their voice is quite quiet. Now, voice recognition might be worthwhile using, if only because it helps someone with Parkinson's make that little bit more of an effort to speak precisely and clearly. Sometimes it's quite easy to get into a situation where you're not forming your words as perhaps you you ought to, but voice recognition can make it can help you because it can actually take a snapshot of your voice, and the more you use voice recognition, the more it gets to recognise you. We've certainly had other people with Parkinson's who've used voice recognition. It just depends on how effective their voice is. But I would say it's one of the most useful pieces of technology that someone could use, irrespective of whether they've got Parkinson's or not.
Great, thanks, Alex. Hope that answers that person's question. Um, I've seen a message come in from Amanda. She's asking, what do we need from a referral point of view? I'll just jump in on this one. I'm assuming, Amanda, that means you're asking about the free support at home we talked about earlier. So there's nothing that you really need from a referral perspective. Basically, we have a contact details, which are the final slide, which we'll go on to once we've done the Q&A, and that includes a URL where you can request IT support at home, or you can call our free phone number, which is 0800 269 545, or you can email inquiries at abilitynet.org.uk. All those details are on the final slide, so before the end of the webinar, you'll see them on screen. And all we ask you to do is, the way we help people is we help them with an issue they're having with their technology. So some of the common things we have is somebody with a disability might want to know how to set up email so they can contact their family if their family lives abroad. So we would just want to know what kind of help you need, perhaps what technology, but those details follow on the next page. Alex, I've had a follow-up question about voice recognition.
Sure.
So Rob's saying, I have cognitive coordination issues with using this software, so problematic with me. He does have a great and loud voice, though. So I guess I'm just wondering, other than voice recognition, you've done these free quick fixes. Is there anything you could suggest for Rob, as somebody with a cognitive and coordination issues?
Sure. So, so to control the computer, if you've got good head movement, you could use a head mouse. If you've got if you've got the ability to hit a switch, you could use switch access. And if you'd like to drop me an email or get in touch with us, we can have a one-to-one conversation. But what I would say is that I am sure that there's technology out there that you can use.
And it might just be, as we've been talking about, it might just be that with the support from someone else, like a volunteer,
Yeah,
Rob, you might be able to then start using voice recognition, because it
yeah.
was David that helped this lady with Parkinson's to set up voice recognition. She was supported the whole time.
I always equate setting up voice recognition. I'm a big music fan, so I think all these people who are really good guitarists or keyboard players, they spend ages and ages and ages practicing to be that good. And I always say to people, look, if you want to sound good, you've got to put the time in, and you've got to make sure your equipment is set up properly. Sometimes for a multitude of reasons, the equipment that people have hasn't really been set up that well, or there's an issue. Getting a volunteer out could actually highlight to you where an issue was. But I am pretty sure that we can help you, Rob.
Great. Thanks, Alex. I've got two more questions at the moment. So,
Sure.
if people do have more questions, please do keep them coming, because we do still have time on this webinar. So one of the questions that I've had, Alex, I can answer this, but I want to see if you're happy to answer it.
Yeah.
Someone's asked, is Parkinson's something that can be acquired by young people as well as older people? So I guess that's just a more general question. And I wondered if you wanted to respond, or I can answer this
No,
question.
sure. I don't mind responding.
Great.
That's a really, really interesting question. So before I knew much about Parkinson's, I was like, oh, okay. Well, Parkinson's is the sort of thing that an uncle or an aunt might get if they're is 70 or 80. But actually, there's quite a lot of people now who are in their 20s and 30s who have young onset Parkinson's. There are lots of people who are in work who have Parkinson's, and they're going to need to use technology to help them out. What we would say is that people who have a disability, I have a disability myself, we still need to make money to pay bills and things like that, and technology can really help you. You only got to think of people like Michael J. Fox, the actor. I think he started to have Parkinson's type symptoms when he was in his late 20s. So it can affect anyone at any time, but it's normally when you're slightly older as opposed to being slightly younger.
And I think I would say when I started working on this presentation with you, Alex, the fact that I found quite hard hitting was what we started with at the beginning of this webinar, which was the 1 in 37 stat. I personally was quite surprised to see that 1 in 37 people during their lifetime will be diagnosed with Parkinson's.
Yeah,
So
and and interestingly enough, Mark, I just shared this morning. I shared something on the AbilityNet website, which was talking about a lady of 35 who's got 2 kids, and she's got Parkinson's, and you can imagine the difficulties with bringing up a 2 children and having a neurological condition like that. So it does affect all sorts of different types of people.
absolutely. Okay. Next question. I'll answer this one quickly, and then I've got another one for you, Alex. So somebody's just asked, does AbilityNet have a global presence, or is it only in the UK? So we like to think that we have global reach. Our mission is to make the digital world as accessible as possible to all people. So we like to think that we have global reach, and a lot of what we do, has an international audience. That said, some of the services we have talked about, so obviously the volunteer services where we support people in their home, that is unfortunately a UK only thing. We have a network of over 300 volunteers in the UK. So I'm afraid if you're listening to this webinar or you're listening to the recording, because perhaps you're from New Zealand, we don't necessarily have a global reach in terms of some of the services and support we offer. Another question for you, Alex, and this is the last one I've got at the moment. This might be the last one, unless I see any more ping through. But I do have an anonymous attendee asking, have you had much success with eye tracking technology? So I think you mentioned this. You might have mentioned this earlier in response to the voice recognition, or you might have not. But what kind of success have you seen with eye tracking technology?
Okay, so I must admit, I've only seen eye tracking briefly. I think for certain clients, it is really, really useful. In fact, I've seen a client with cerebral palsy. He's actually a personal friend, and he's not got much hand or arm control, and he communicates with eye tracking, and it's amazing to see. What I would say is that although the price has come down considerably, it's one of these technologies where it is quite expensive. However, it may be the only option. So I would say if you've looked at other technology that doesn't really work, I would say please look at eye tracking. Please contact the eye tracking specialists in your country and always get a demonstration of the technology. And I always say to people, look, you wouldn't just buy a new car and drive it off the forecourt or at the garage, would you? You'd want to go and take it for a drive around the block to make sure it met your needs or whether you liked it or not. And I would say that's exactly the same with technology. You've got to really go out and try it. And a lot of suppliers will only be too happy to go out and give you a demonstration. Now, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I actually went out and to a study day on eye technology. I don't have much eye control because of my disability, and I don't have much lateral or horizontal movement. But I was able, in a fashion, to get the eye control to control the computer. And what I would say is that it's very easy to make subtle changes to the way that the system is set up. So I would certainly look at eye control. And I'm just going to go back to one of the one of the other things that Mark has said. It's true. We don't have volunteers all over the world. But what I would do is that if you've got a query, and if you're from the States or from Canada or even from Australia, I will go away and do the research, and I will point you towards the organisation who are based in whatever country you're in that can support you. So, for example, we've had calls or we've had emails from people in America, in Canada. I think we had someone from like New South Wales in Australia wanting our help and guidance, because we have a really strong reputation, and a lot of people have heard about us, so they'll get in contact with you, and I'm really happy to help you as much as I can.
And I know, Alex, that on the email address and phone number to follow, you're usually the person that's manning the phone. So it's great that we're getting these questions coming through, because I think you're quite used to answering them. Somebody did just comment just before we finished the Q&A portion of the webinar. They did add that head tilt tracking, so this is from Claudio, head tilt tracking is also a good alternative to eye tracking and is less expensive.
Yeah.
So that's just sort of something to add to this for other people on the webinar to consider.
Basically, that is where you've got a little camera on top of your computer, and you have a little red spot that's attached to your forehead or that's attached to a baseball cap. And after configuring it, when you move your head left, the cursor moves left. When you move it right or up and down, the cursor will follow you. When you want to click on a particular pull down menu or the start menu, you just have to keep your head still for a couple of seconds, and the system can be configured to do a double click for you. So, and you can actually get a head tracking system for less than about £500.
That's great. So that does bring us to the end of the webinar. So thank you, Alex, obviously, for presenting on this webinar and sharing your experience. I think everyone on this webinar would probably agree. It's clear that you're very knowledgeable about this. We've talked about this before, but here listed on the end slide at the moment is our free phone number. It's free phone within the UK. 0800 269 545. You can call us for free and impartial advice from our advice and information team. And Alex usually mans that call a lot of the time, so you'll be able to chat to him potentially even about this webinar that you've just been on. You can also email us at inquiries@abilitynet.org.uk. And then there's two websites listed on this contact us slide. One is for our expert resources at www.abilitynet.org.uk/expert-resources. And for those of you that have Parkinson's yourself or know someone with Parkinson's and have a particular IT problem that you'd like to request our support on, go to www.abilitynet.org.uk/request-IT-support, and that will take you to a page with an email address, a phone number, and a form where you can request IT support at home, and we will get back to you about that. So thank you again, Alex. Thank you, everyone that's joined this. We're now going to end the webinar, and you will receive a recording and the slide deck following the webinar. And there is also a short survey just to complete if you would like to give us any feedback about the webinar. But I already know you've had a few positive comments in the chat function, Alex, from people saying thank you.
Cool.
So that's really great. So thanks, everyone. Bye then. Bye.